Okay, so now let's focus on kind of the most powerful element of Chord Prism, and that's the Smart Scale / multi-arp, which is this right-hand section here. So what I've done, based on the things we did earlier, I made a little chord progression. I changed the instrument from that kind of vanilla piano to like a Rhodes organ, give it a little bit of processing, added some drums. So here's the chord progression I've come up with in, I'll show you it playing actually. So if I open up this chord, you'll see this playing. So yeah, using all the features I showed you, I've created that nice chord progression for my track. Something I did think I forgot to mention is you can go in and build your own chords simply by right-clicking, and we can add any chord. We can build any custom chords we want. So like I said, the features go really deep on this one if you want to go there. But in this short tutorial, we're just going to be showing you how to quickly start jamming with it and making music. So yeah, there's my chord progression, right? So then what I've done on here is a bass, right? So I've got a bass in Chord Prism. It's this the sub, and it's interesting actually how Chord Prism works within Ableton. Works slightly different in other DAWs, but in here you actually load your VSTs in to the plugin and it plays it. So whatever instruments you've got, you can load them and use them with Chord Prism. So watch what happens as I'm playing my chords from one instance of Chord Prism over here, then I've got my bass instance over here, and as it plays you can see it's set to dynamic scale and you can see these changing, right? So I could really quickly just do a one note bass line, okay? So where's my, so on this, what's C on my keyboard, currently is G flat, but as it plays, it's going to listen to the other instance of Chord Prism and it's going to move the tones that are going to be within those chords that are being played, and this gives us a much more dynamic, as it suggests, way of playing bass lines. So I'm going to start off just playing one note, right? I'm literally going to just be playing a rhythm with the C note on my keyboard, and listen to how it shifts with the chords. Ready? So there you go, it's following the root note along, which is a classic technique in music theory, is to use that root note and create a rhythm just with that root note. And it's doing it all for me. It sounds brilliant, it sounds in key. I don't have to think about it, I'm just thinking about what pattern to play. But what's so great about this plugin, as far as inspiration goes, is now I can be a little more free with how I play around with that chord. And you'll see that I think these green ones that are highlighted are all within the chord that's playing. The others outside of that are in the scale, but not in that chord. So we can kind of go in and out and create these little dissonance and interesting elements through jamming. So let's have a little jam with this, playing some other notes. Watch this keyboard playing, and you'll see I'm moving my notes around, but it's also moving them for me at the same time. But I haven't got the fear of it going out of key. Ready? Here we go. So you can really quickly just jam and play around and think of like nice little ends to your bass line. So here's a bass line I created earlier using this technique. Amazing. Such a good tool for writing bass lines. Let's move over to the melody, so I'll explain some of the other features. So I've got something on here, which I can... So I've got a little delayed, echoed kind of Rhodes thing going on there. And again, this is another instance of Chord Prism, and it's going to be listening to the others, essentially, and sticking to those tones. So let's just quickly just demonstrate playing a little melody over the top, right? Some other features here, you'll notice that the black notes have got these kind of lines on them, like look like MIDI. So what these actually are arps. So it's gonna arpeggiate through that chord. So these are great. I can play these and also jam with the other notes. So let's have a little listen. So powerful, being able to just play around. I'm just jamming on a little section of my keyboard, you know, one finger playing, but those chords are moving my melody around to make much more interesting variations. Now it has been capturing like everything I've been playing. You'll notice up here in export it's got a little 16, so it's recorded 16 bars of me playing there. So maybe I liked some bits there, maybe I wanted to change some, you know, like I said, I'm not the best player, so I'm going to make mistakes. But what's so cool is we can bring that MIDI across, and we've got it here. Here's my melody playing, look, and I can go in and then just tweak and change, pull bits out, rearrange. Really super cool. Okay, so as I said in the intro, I was going to show you also the step sequencer. So I've got something a bit more electronic set up here because I think it's kind of this repetitive step sequencer really goes back to, you know, old school gear, old synths, drum machines, which are set up with step sequencers, so you can make these kind of really intricate rhythmic patterns. So what I've got here is a synth, set up some nice chords. But if I turn on down the bottom here, the step sequencer, you can see I've got a 16-step pattern. Now I've got to be running, I'm still turning that off, I've got to be running the DAW for it to work, okay? So you can see the step sequencer is not running unless the DAW's playing. So if I play the DAW now, play this chord, you'll hear what happens. So I'm just going to play this simple pattern I've made. Well, complicated pattern but simple chords. And I've got 4 banks of patterns here, so I can change up the rhythm. Let's just try that with some drums. So there's an added bass line, again, of course, using Chord Prism, but you could see how I could flip between patterns. All that's really happening there is two chords are playing, but we're changing the rhythm of them being played in using the really powerful step sequencer. Now those patterns could be shifted by via automation in your DAW. I'm not sure if I mentioned that earlier, but pretty much all the parameters inside Chord Prism can be adjusted through automation. So things like, for example, I could change key. I could have already set up my chord progression and be really happy with it, but maybe I want a new section. I want to change that middle 8 in my track to change the major to a minor chord or a major chord. I could shift that in automation in the DAW. So like I said, there's a lot more deep features to get into. I hope I'll be able to do a deep dive on the plugin on some of those other features, but I hope this tutorial, first of all, it's helped you to write chord progressions from start to finish and to find lots of variations of more intricate chords and variations. I hope that you now will, using this plugin, be able to create bass lines which are linked sort of tonally with the chord progressions you've created, and be able to experiment a little bit more and get a little more variation in your bass lines and the way you finish ends of bars off, etc. Also, it'll help you write melodies and sort of solo lead lines. And now with that step sequencer added, you can see how you can make really intricate kind of step sequenced chord patterns and melodies and arpeggiators. So for me, this is a brilliant plugin. As I said before, no replacement for learning music theory, but a way to engage with music theory in a new way and write awesome music, with your own style, your own genre, and put your own flavour on it by selecting and choosing tones and vibes that you're into. So there we have it, Chord Prism. So what have we learned? We've learned it's an incredibly powerful plugin, and that's just using some of the features that are actually available on this. We showed you today all about the chord generator. Showed you how to use that to make brilliant chord progressions, almost infinite variations for your track making. We showed you the smart scale, a way to interact with those chords, and we showed you the sequencer at the end, a way to create really interesting rhythmic chords. I think we've written a song. We've learned how to kind of use Chord Prism to actually quickly start to compose. And I think that's what's interesting to me as a beat maker, is we're actually getting into composition, deciding musically how we want to take our tracks. We've experimented with some of the options, and I just urge you to have a go and seek out what options suit your style of music. Look out for stuff that sounds similar to things you really enjoy. What chord progressions, what scales are going to suit your genre. I'm hoping this has given you a bit of inspiration as well. This plugin's really inspired me to focus on creating my own chords, melodies and bass lines, and we've really improved the way we interact with how we play a melody. It gives us real direction on how to play that melody over the top of a really complicated chord structure we could build. It'd be quite tricky if you're not, if your music theory is not up to scuff, and nor is your actual playing. This gives you such a good opportunity to create some really musically rich and diverse music. And bass lines, I often get asked by students, how do I make decent bass lines? Okay, one thing's the mix and the master, getting that bass right in the mix, but also it's music, isn't it? It's actually making bass lines that are interesting to the ear and catchy. And with this plugin, we can really play around until we find that catchy thing, but with all that comfort knowing that that bass line is within, our really complicated chord progression we've made. And yeah, I hope you've been inspired to sort of look up some music theory if you don't know already. It's something I'm always researching and endlessly interested in. So yeah, Chord Prism, really brilliant plugin. I hope you've inspired. I'll see you soon. Peace.